Starting off this countdown, we have the babysitter. Honestly, I'm glad that I never had to babysit when I was younger. The job alone is definitely pretty scary, just being alone in someone else's house at night watching over their kids. But I'm sure you've all heard of the famous urban legend about the babysitter who's just chilling in the living room while the kids are upstairs sleeping. That's when she receives a phone call asking if she has checked on the children. This happens repeatedly until she calls the police, who trace the call and found out that the killer is in the house. Although this is not quite the same, something similar to this did indeed happen. In 2016, a 65-year-old nanny was out for a walk with a 20-month-old girl that she was looking after in a stroller. A man named Craig Mikowski came up to her and told her that she was pushing a dead baby. The woman was spooked and went home immediately. However, he followed her home and broke into the house. He kept demanding for her to hand over the baby. He then took the stroller and fled. Thankfully, the baby was no longer in the stroller. He was later arrested for child endangerment, burglary, and petty theft. Coming in our ninth spot, we have the discarded body. So for this next urban legend, there are multiple versions of it. But basically, it surrounds the idea of someone seeing a nice rolled up carpet on the street and brings it home to redecorate their house. Only when they unroll the carpet, they find that there was a body inside of it. Well, in 1984, this exact thing happened to 3 Columbia University students. They picked up a carpet off the streets of Manhattan only to find that a man's body had been rolled up in it. It also happened in 2013 in Georgia when a body was found in a rolled up gym mat. Making our way down the list to number 8, we have Catman. First, we have the Dogman urban legend, and now there's a Catman too. Like, what other animal mans are out there? So the Catman of Greenock was a legend that dates back to around the 1970s. Basically, the Catman is a small man-type creature with skin made black from coal, and then he also has glowing eyes. And he is said to lurk the streets. There are different origin stories for the Catman. Some say that he was a Russian sailor that got stranded in Scotland, and without money or family, he was forced to live on the streets. Eventually, his mental state declined, and he turned more into a beast-type creature. While no one knows his true backstory, the Catman is supposedly real. He is said to be harmless and has been seen numerous times near wooded areas. He is said to eat rats and mice and hangs out around with stray cats. He can't speak, but he responds with gestures. There's even a Facebook fan page dedicated to him. On this page, members post his sightings, pictures, and videos of the Catman. However, he hasn't been seen since 2017, so fans are concerned about him. Moving on at number 7, we have premature burials. There are tons of people out there that are terrified of being buried alive. Let me know in the comments below what your biggest fear is. Although it's unlikely to happen nowadays, there is an urban legend out there that will make you think otherwise. Unfortunately, being buried alive is possible, as it has happened a number of times. One case involves a woman named Alice Blunden. Back in 17th century England, Alice was presumed dead after drinking a large amount of poppy tea. Now, poppy tea is made from dried, unwashed seed pods that contain morphine and codeine. So basically, she was just heavily sedated for a long period of time. But Alice was presumed dead, and she was quickly buried. She woke up a couple of days later, and children heard noises coming from around her grave. They found that Alice was indeed alive. However, it took another day just to dig up her coffin. After Alice was finally unburied, she was alive, covered in bruises and blood from trying to escape. She then quickly passed out from the experience. And then, believe it or not, she was presumed dead and then buried again. Like, that's terrifying. The poor girl has terrible luck. Coming in our 6th spot, we have the power toilet. Okay, so I'm terrified of flying as it is. Like, turbulence is my worst nightmare. But what's also scary about airplanes is the urban legend surrounding the bathrooms. In 2002, it was said that a woman got sucked into an airplane's toilet after flushing. However, this was just a rumor and it never actually happened. But the legend continued to spread, saying that the high-pressure vacuum flush can suck someone in. Well, this real-life story might just be more terrifying than the urban legend. In 1986, a 70-year-old woman on a cruise ship got her intestines sucked out from the suction-powered flush of a toilet. Doctors claim that since the woman was bigger, she created a seal around the toilet, and then when she flushed, the toilet had enough power to completely take out her small intestines. Thankfully, she survived, but it's just scary knowing that that could happen. Like, I just want to do my business in peace, thank you very much. But also, shouldn't you stand up and then flush, so you don't get a spray, like close the lid and I don't even want to think about it. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with the pool drains. So when I was a kid, we would go to pools and I would always have a fear about being sucked into the pool drain. Well, I always thought that it was an irrational fear and, just a legend, but sadly, it can happen and it can be deadly. It is said that a pool's drain is strong enough that with contact with human skin, it can create hundreds of pounds of pressure. Some have even drowned from being sucked and held at the bottom of the pool by the drains. Coming in at number 4, we have the escalators. I'm sure when you were younger, you've heard the legend that a loose shoelace can get trapped in an escalator and as a result, your shoe and foot can be dragged in. Well, there are tons of reports of this actually happening. Some accidents have been devastating. In 2001, a boy in California lost 3 toes after his lace got trapped in an escalator. Now, I think I'm gonna think twice before I get on an escalator, or you know what, I'm just gonna take the stairs from now on. It's healthier anyway, so there. In our 3rd spot, we have the Frozen Woman. And I'm not talking about Elsa or Anna from Disney's Frozen here. Instead, I'm talking about the legend of the woman who completely froze to death and later was thawed out and came back to life. Believe it or not, this actually happened. In 1981, a 19-year-old woman named Jean Hillard was out driving when her car slid into a ditch. Hillard tried walking 2 miles for help. However, she fell unconscious and froze. She was found frozen stiff, her skin gray in color with her eyes wide open. It was said that her body was frozen for 6 hours in negative 22 degrees weather. Her body was so cold that needles would snap in half when trying to pierce through her skin. Eventually, she slowly thawed out and resumed consciousness and made a full recovery. Moving on to number 2, we have the Red Room. This is a famous Japanese urban legend. This legend started in the 1990s and is about a cursed pop-up that appears on a person's computer screen. It's an image of a door with a recorded voice that asks, "Do you like the Red Room?" This ad will continue to pop up even when you close it. Others say that the pop-up is a red background with black letters that say, "Do you like the Red Room?" Those who have seen the pop-up are later found dead, the walls of the room painted red with their own blood. Well, it's kind of true. In 2004, murdered her classmate. It is said that this young girl was a fan of the Red Room and even had the link to the Red Room bookmarked on her computer. It is said that the Red Room somehow influenced her into committing the murder. And in our number 1 spot, we have the accidental kiss. You heard me correctly. There have been times where people have accidentally eaten other people. So this legend dates back to World War II. During this time, many families were facing food shortages, so their relatives would send over care packages with tins of food. However, legend goes that one family received a care package with an unlabeled tin. It was filled with a powder inside, so they thought it was a spice or food supplement. They began ingesting this powder by sprinkling it on their meals. Turns out that the tin contained the cremated remains of a grandmother, and it was sent to the wrong address. So, there are 2 real-life stories that I want to mention here. One is the case of a woman featured on the show My Strange Addiction. This woman was addicted to eating her husband's ashes. In fact, she was eating it for 2 months and was said to have ingested 6 pounds of human ashes. The other story is a case of accidental cannibalism. A killer named Joe Metheny was found guilty of killing multiple individuals and then turning them into hamburgers, which were later sold to his neighbors. Starting off this countdown, we have Death by a Wedgie. Shows depicting middle school made it seem like they were going to be filled with big bullies that will harass you for your lunch money and then give you massive wedgies. And for those of you that have gotten a wedgie, you know that it's quite unpleasant, but not something that could take your life, right? Well, wrong. Of course, there's the urban legend about the guy after being wedgied so badly that the underwear got caught in his intestines. Although this didn't happen, there's a case where a man did die after receiving a wedgie. Back in 2013 in Oklahoma, a 35-year-old man gave his stepdad a wedgie. That resulted in his death. During a fight, he pulled his stepdad's elastic underwear band over his head. It actually got wrapped around his neck and ended up strangling him to death. The son was then charged with first-degree manslaughter. That's a very unfortunate way to go. Moving on to number 9, we have death by farts. So we all know that tooting is a natural bodily function, but is it a deadly one too? There are several different urban legends surrounding this. You have the legend about the boyfriend who apparently passed away after holding in his toots while hanging out with his girlfriend. Then you have the legend about the man who passed away in his sleep after tooting a bunch. Apparently he slept in a poorly ventilated room and his gas ended up poisoning him. But these are both just fake stories. But the real story was featured in an episode of 1,000 Ways to Die. This show recreates supposed deaths, so they claim the story is real, but who knows. Anyway, apparently two friends were fooling around one day. One of the friends took a lighter and held it near the other friend's behind while the other dude passed gas. It ended up causing a big flame and set his friend on fire. His friend ended up passing away after being burned alive. Coming in at number 8, we have the Halloween decorations. So in one of my past urban legend videos, I talked about a real dead body that was hung in an amusement park's funhouse. Days went by and no one knew that this prop was indeed real. Well, there's another case just like this, except this time it involves Halloween decorations. So legend goes that one time a kid was out trick-or-treating. He saw a very realistic body prop on someone's lawn and started kicking it. Turns out that this person was real and had died. Well, this legend indeed came to life. On October 26, 2005, a 42-year-old woman hung herself off of a tree in her neighborhood. The body remained there for days as onlookers thought it was just a Halloween decoration or a Halloween prank. Eventually, police were called and they were horrified to discover that the decoration was real. In our 7th spot, we have the cell phones. I'm sure a lot of you have seen the signs near the gas stations that say, "Do not smoke, do not leave your engine running, and lastly, do not use your cell phone." Now, why can't we use our cell phone at a gas station? So it's said that if you use your cell phone around a gas station that it will cause the gas pump to explode. Now, people think that this is just an urban legend and that using their cell phones around one is just completely harmless. Well, think again. On May 17, 2004, a college student was fueling their car when he answered a call. Immediately, he was surrounded by flames. Thankfully, he only received minor burns, but his cell phone was completely destroyed. It's said that his cell phone ignited the gas fumes emitted from the pump, causing the incident. There you have it. Phones are deadly. And at number 6, we have Santa Claus. So there's an urban legend out there about a dad that dressed up as Santa Claus and decided to climb down the chimney in order to surprise his kids. However, he got stuck halfway through and ended up passing away. Scarily enough, this has happened. There are numerous cases about people dying from being stuck in chimneys. In 1986 in Florida, a burglar tried to enter a family's home via the chimney to try and rob the home. However, he got stuck halfway through. He tried screaming for help, but the neighbors just dismissed it. A couple of days later, the owners returned home and found their house smelling like rotten flesh from the robber's body decaying in the fireplace. Then in 2015 in California, another burglar tried to enter a home through the chimney. However, the owner of the house ended up lighting a fire and the robber died from the heat and smoke. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with the laughing attack. So how about the urban legend that laughter kills? According to this legend, laughing too hard can cause your spleen and other organs in your body to just explode and kill you. Well, that might just be a legend, but there are multiple reported cases of people that have died from laughing too hard. In 1975, a man named Alex Mitchell was watching an episode of a show called The Goodies. He found one scene incredibly funny and he ended up laughing for about a half an hour straight before he ended up passing away. His wife was just happy that his last few moments were positive. Moving on to number 4, we have the invisible guest. So what would you do if you found out that you weren't actually living alone, but you had someone living in your attic? First off, I'd be mad that they weren't paying rent, and second, that'd be pretty scary. Well, this next urban legend is about a man who lives alone, but starts to notice objects around his house disappearing. He would also hear footsteps above him. When he searched his attic, he found that a man was living there. Well, this exact same thing happened to a man in Japan. He was living alone when he discovered that his food was mysteriously disappearing. He thought that he was a victim of several robberies. He then installed several security cameras and discovered that a homeless woman was living in his closet. Apparently, she had been living there for a full year before he noticed. Coming in at number 3, we have the popped out eyeballs. Have any of you tried to keep your eyes open when you sneeze? Some say that it's impossible. Others say that it can be harmful. Legend has it that if you keep your eyes open when you sneeze, The force of your sneeze will cause your eyeballs to pop right out of their socket. Although scientists say that this is impossible, it has happened to one man. A 44-year-old man called the EMS after he sneezed, claiming that one of his eyes had popped out. When the EMS arrived, the man's right eye was swollen and in pain. Turns out that the man had pre-existing health conditions and he had a bunch of trapped air and built up pressure behind his right eye. So when he sneezed, it caused his eye to protrude. In our second spot, we have the objects in the eye. Basically, this urban legend is about a woman who thinks she just sees floaters in her eye, but turns out she actually just had a bunch of contact lenses lost in her eye that were floating around. Well, this is not an urban legend. It is 100% a real story. Back in 2017, a 67-year-old woman was having trouble seeing, suffered from discomfort in her eyes, and would often see floaters in her eyes. Now, floaters in the eyes are normal. They're the grayish looking spots that some people might see, and they aren't dangerous. A lot of people experience them. But in this woman's case, they were not floaters. When she went in for cataract surgery, doctors found 27 contact lenses stuck in the eye of this woman. 17 of which were stuck together and formed this large mass. Then they found 10 more. Doctors claim that this was possible because she had deep-set eyes, most of which were found lodged high up underneath her eyelid. Oh, it's gonna make my eyes water. Although they don't know how long these contacts were in her eyes for, she was using disposable lenses for about 35 years. So it could have been in her eye for years. And in our number one spot, we have the phone charger. I don't know about you, but I was always scared about this next urban legend. Back in the day when I had a BlackBerry, I was told to never use your phone while it was charging. It was said that if you receive a phone call when your phone is charging, it could cause your whole phone and wall socket to explode, or it could give you a deadly electric shock. And this has indeed happened before. In July of 2013, a woman in China named Ma Alan was using her iPhone 4 while it was charging. She answered her phone, and before she knew it, it administered a deadly electric shock that took her life. Turns out that she was using a third-party charger and not a proper Apple charger. Police say that the faulty charger was the result of the electrocution. The police then released a statement warning individuals not to make calls when their phone is charging. Okay, so I have definitely done that before, but I will no longer be doing it. Starting off this countdown, we have the stranger under the bed. Posted on Reddit by the user Myra, this legend follows a 22-year-old girl that just moved into her first apartment. One day, while talking to her boyfriend on the phone, she dropped her phone by her bed. When she went to pick up her phone, she saw a man lying under her bed with his back to her. She got her phone and acted all cool, you know, so she went to the bathroom, and then she hopped out the window, and she could do this since she was on the first floor, and then she called the cops. When the cops arrived, they dragged a thin, tired-looking man out of her house. The police found him standing outside her bathroom door, holding one of her kitchen knives. Apparently, this man crept into her apartment while she was out getting mail, and then planned to kill her. Be safe, everyone. Even getting mail nowadays can be deadly. Moving on to number 9, we have the operator. Posted on Reddit by Higgs Thunder, this legend surrounds a 911 operator that received a very disturbing call. It starts off with the man telling the operator that there is a strange man stumbling around in his yard, and it was in the middle of the night. Things start to take a weird turn when the man turns upside down doing a handstand. I mean, he's obviously talented, but creepy. The man notices that he has a creepy huge smile plastered on his face. This creepy man eventually presses his face on the window. The man on the phone described him as having huge teeth with no color in his eyes. The call ends with the operator asking if he is alone in the house. The man says yes, but the creep outside shakes his head no, telling him no, he's not alone. Then the operator hears a loud noise and the call ends. In our 8th spot, we have OM. This legend surrounds a mysterious car with its license plate scratched off, so only the letters OM are visible. Back in college, a boy named Tim and his friends went to go get Dunkin' Donuts at 2 a.m. But the closest one was across state lines. They were in New Hampshire, and to get to Dunkin' Donuts, they needed to travel through a narrow highway and some woods. On the way back from getting their food, they noticed that the car with the license plate OM was following them. When they slowed down, the car would too. If they sped up, so would OM. This continued for quite some time, and Tim and all his friends were super creeped out. Eventually, they lost him when there was a fork in the highway and they both went their separate ways. Turns out that there was a murder in a neighboring country, and a witness saw a car with the license plate OM drive away from the scene. This has led them to believe that OM is a cross-country serial killer. Coming in at number 7, we have the black-eyed children. We have the black-eyed peas. This legend is definitely one to keep you up at night. The legend surrounds children whose eyes are completely black that make an appearance at night. The kids can be anywhere from 6 to 16 years old, and they target adults who are alone. But they aren't actually children. Although they look like them, they're said to be some sort of creature that takes their form as a child. These kids often ask for favors, such as asking to get a ride home with them, asking for food, or to use the bathroom in their house. It's said that once you let them in, they will commit acts of extreme violence. Now, there are too many stories about people encountering these children. 1998 was said to be the first recorded encounter. A man claims that 2 black-eyed children tried to get a drive from him. Apparently, the children said, and I quote, "We can't get into your car until you do. Just let us in. We will be gone before you know it." Yikes, good thing he didn't let them in. He would have been gone before you know it. In our 6th spot, we have the Goat Man. This is a pretty popular urban legend, and sorry if you like camping or hiking in the woods, because this story might just ruin that for you. Legend goes that a weird goat man type creature lurks the forest of some areas. This creature is described as a man with the head of a goat that can shapeshift into different forms. He uses these forms to get into friend groups and terrorize them. It's said that it's bad luck if you talk about it or if you see it. Great. I'm gonna have bad luck now for the sake of your entertainment, so you're welcome. Y'all better give this video a big thumbs up. Now, you will always know when this creature is lurking around, since a weird, nasty smell will plague the air. The scent is described as a heavy, coppery smell. In one particular story, a group of friends head out to stay at one of the friends' uncle's cabins. However, during the trip, they are constantly being tormented by this goat man. It started with the goat man following them in the woods late at night to eventually getting into the cabin with them. We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with the cyber stalker. Legend surrounds Colby, a boy that played on several online games. On one of those websites, he made friends with a boy. After several months of friendship, Colby's birthday was coming up and his online friend wanted to send him a cool present in real life. So Colby gave him his address, even though his parents told him to never give out his address online. He became filled with guilt and wished he never shared his personal information, but it was too late. Later that night, he admitted to his parents what he had done. His mom proceeded to say, "You shouldn't have done that. We told you to never give out personal information on the internet. He wasn't really a kid. He just pretended to be one. Do you know what he did? He came in our house, broke in, and murdered both of us, just so he could spend some time with you." Moving on to number 4, we have Return to Sender. This legend was posted on Reddit by the user Meninlicet. The legend surrounds a man who I'm going to refer to as John and his neighbor who is a wannabe YouTube star who we're gonna call Dylan, just so we don't get confused. So one day Dylan goes to John and asks him to collect his mail as he's going to be out of town for a bit. Over the course of a couple days, he collected some bills and junk mail, nothing too odd. That was until one day he received a cardboard box labeled Return to Sender. The box was oddly heavy, but John still managed to lug it back to his house. He was putting it in his garage when he dropped the box and heard a crack. He was scared that he broke something important, but decided that if the neighbor ever asked him about it, he'd just be like, nah, I didn't break it, it broke en route. Now days go by, and his garage and house start to fill with a terrible odor. He realized that it was coming from this box. When he opened the box to see what was causing the smell, he found his neighbor's dead body packaged up in the box. A vlogging camera in the box revealed that he had planned to mail himself across state lines. In the last entry, the box toppled over and he broke his neck and died. The camera kept recording until the battery died. However, John realized that just after the neighbor broke his neck, he heard his own garage door screech open, meaning that when John dropped the box, that's what killed his neighbor. Making our way down the list, number 3, we have Autopilot. This legend surrounds a man named Gavin. In the evenings, he taught English and biology in a poor neighborhood. Apparently, a lot of murders and abductions and carjackings happen in that neighborhood. As a result, after his last student, he would always run to his car, lock his doors, and drive away fast. He said that he did this so many times that it was an automatic instinct. One evening, he stayed longer than usual to help one of his students study for a test. After he finished, he ran to his car like usual, but he said that something felt off. The street and his car were both different from what he remembered. That's when he noticed a woman was sitting in the passenger seat of his car. She had something in her hand that looked like a weapon and was shouting in a language that he didn't understand. He then drove off and she kept gesturing which way for him to drive. He claims that this woman was very crazy and he feared for his own life. The woman then started to scratch and hit him. As self-defense, he fought back until she stopped moving. Only then, when she was dead, did he realize that there were 2 small children in the back seat of his car just staring at him. He looked around the car and realized that he had gotten into the wrong car. Same model, same color, but it wasn't his. What's creepy about this legend is that it's based on several true stories about similar events that have happened. In our second spot, we have the old new house. Legend surrounds a couple who bought an old house and had plans to flip it to make it look new. Well, the previous owners wallpapered every wall and ceiling of the house, so they were stuck removing tons of wallpaper. What was weird was that under a corner section of the paper in every room was a person's name and date. When Googling the name, they found out that it was a missing person with the date that they went missing. They notified the police, and turns out that the material they were removing from the walls wasn't wallpaper. It was human flesh. And in our number 1 spot, we have the living history. This legend surrounds a teacher that learned something very disturbing from one of her students' history projects. For this project, the students had to have an interview with their grandparents and record the conversation. The teacher was marking some of the projects when she started watching the interview conducted by one of her students, Olivia. Olivia was interviewing her great-uncle Stephen when he shared with her one of his memories that still haunts him. He says that back in the day, he was assigned to clean up a school that had been destroyed by civil wars. In the basement, he found a letter. The letter was written by the janitor of the school, whose name was Stanislav. It basically says how he lost his wife and kids, but what made him happy was listening to his radio all day while cleaning the school, and from seeing the students smile at him as he passed by. The school appreciated his cleaning and they were really dependent on him. However, towards the end of the letter, we find out that his radio stopped working, which was one of the things keeping him from falling into a deep state of depression. Her great uncle found him. But that's not all. Turns out that the school was destroyed 2 years ago, but the letter was dated 2 weeks before her uncle started rebuilding the school. Meaning, this man, Stanislav, went to a vandalized, falling apart schoolhouse and cleaned up blood and rubble. But he was imagining that he was cleaning up spilled drinks and dust. He smiled at dead bodies in the hallway and believed that they were students smiling back at him because they liked his radio. He moved around corpses so he could sweep the ground under them. Creepiest part, the radio never stopped working. When he found the janitor's body, the radio was still on and playing.